Heavy rain drowned Manhattan beneath a curtain of silver darkness. Midnight had long passed, but the city refused to sleep. Towering skyscrapers glowed against the storm while luxury vehicles lined the entrance of the Blackstone Grand Hotel, where New York's most influential names had spent the evening celebrating power, success, and wealth. Among them had been Victoria Sterling. To the world, Victoria was the brilliant founder and CEO of Sterling Nexus Technologies, a company worth billions. Investors admired her. Business magazines worshipped her. Competitors feared her. Yet none of them knew how completely broken she felt tonight. Only 3 hours earlier, Victoria had discovered the truth about the man she trusted most. Her business partner. Her closest advisor. The man who had helped build her company from a small startup into a technological powerhouse. He had betrayed her. Months of secret financial manipulation had finally surfaced. Confidential projects had been sold. Corporate strategies had been leaked. Investors had been deceived. The damage threatened everything Victoria had spent years building. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless. The realization had shattered something inside her. Now she stumbled through the rain alone, her expensive black gown soaked by the storm. Her heels slipped against the wet pavement. Her vision blurred from tears and too much champagne. Every breath felt heavy. Fear settled deep inside her chest. Not fear of losing money. Not fear of public humiliation. Fear of losing control. The one thing Victoria had always relied upon was her ability to stay in control. Tonight that control was gone. She barely noticed the approaching intersection. Barely noticed the flashing headlights. Barely noticed her own strength disappearing. Then the world tilted. Her knees buckled. The sidewalk rushed upward. Darkness threatened to swallow her whole. Across the street, a black armored SUV paused at a red light. Inside sat Damian Blackwood. Most of New York believed Damian was a shipping magnate whose corporations controlled international trade routes and investment networks. The truth was far different. Damian Blackwood was the hidden king of an empire built on influence, information, and absolute power. Politicians feared him. Executives respected him. Enemies avoided speaking his name. He controlled vast portions of the city's financial landscape through carefully constructed corporations that appeared entirely legitimate. Normally, Damian ignored strangers. He had learned long ago that becoming emotionally involved with other people's problems only created weakness. Yet something about the woman collapsing through the rain caught his attention. His sharp eyes followed her movement. The expensive dress. The exhaustion. The unmistakable loneliness. It was a loneliness he recognized far too well. The traffic light changed. His driver waited for instructions. Damian should have left. Instead he opened the door. Cold rain struck his face as he crossed the street. By the time he reached her, Victoria was barely conscious. She looked fragile. Lost. Completely unlike the confident CEO whose face regularly appeared on magazine covers. Damian crouched beside her. For a moment she opened her eyes. A faint whisper escaped her lips. One single word. Sophia. The sound hit Damian like a thunderbolt. Everything inside him froze. His breath stopped. His heart began pounding. Sophia. The name belonged to only one person. His wife. His late wife. The woman he had buried 5 years ago. The woman whose death had left a permanent scar on his soul. Nobody knew how much Sophia's loss had changed him. Nobody knew that every decision since her death had been influenced by grief. And now a complete stranger had whispered her name. Victoria lost consciousness before Damian could ask another question. The storm intensified around them. For reasons he could not explain, Damian carefully lifted her into his arms. He told himself it was simple responsibility. Nothing more. Yet deep inside, instinct whispered something different. Protect her. The thought arrived unexpectedly. Danger surrounded his life every day. Bringing a stranger into his world was reckless. But leaving her alone felt impossible. An hour later, Victoria slept inside one of the guest suites within Blackwood Manor. The mansion overlooked the Hudson River from behind iron gates and extensive security systems. It was less a home and more a fortress designed to protect everyone inside. When Victoria finally woke, morning sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows. Confusion immediately flooded her mind. The unfamiliar room. The luxurious surroundings. The distant presence of security personnel outside. Everything felt strange, yet oddly safe. That realization unsettled her. Nothing about the situation should have felt comforting. She was inside the home of a complete stranger. A powerful stranger. A dangerous stranger. Yet the fear she expected never fully arrived. Hours later, after recovering from the previous night's events, Victoria began exploring portions of the mansion. Elegant hallways stretched throughout the estate. Historic artwork decorated the walls. Family photographs occupied carefully arranged shelves. The atmosphere felt surprisingly personal for a man known for absolute control. Then Victoria stopped walking. A photograph near the library entrance captured her attention. Her body went completely still. Her breath caught. Her pulse accelerated. Heart pounding violently inside her chest, she stepped closer. The picture showed Damien standing beside a beautiful woman. The woman smiled confidently at the camera. Dark hair. Green eyes. Graceful features. Victoria stared in disbelief. Fear and confusion collided inside her mind. Because the woman standing beside Damien Blackwood looked exactly like someone she had known her entire life. Someone impossible. Someone who could not be connected to this mysterious Mafia King. The woman in the photograph looked exactly like Victoria's mother. As Victoria continued staring at the portrait, a chilling realization formed in her mind. The woman identified as Sophia Blackwood was either her mother's twin, or someone had hidden a family secret for decades. Victoria remained frozen before the portrait long after common sense told her to look away. Every detail felt impossible. The woman standing beside Damien Blackwood looked so much like her mother that her mind refused to accept it as coincidence. The same emerald eyes. The same elegant smile. Even the small dimple near her cheek was identical. A cold wave of fear crawled through her chest. For years, Victoria had believed she knew everything about her family. Her mother, Evelyn Sterling, had raised her alone after her father died when she was young. There had never been stories about sisters, secret relatives, or hidden branches of the family tree. Yet the photograph hanging inside Damien's mansion suggested an entirely different reality. She did not hear Damien approach. His voice arrived quietly behind her. The sudden stillness in Victoria's expression immediately caught his attention. Damien had spent years studying people. He recognized shock when he saw it. More importantly, he recognized when someone was looking at Sophia's portrait with genuine recognition. The realization unsettled him. Sophia had been gone for 5 years, but her absence still controlled parts of his life. Seeing Victoria stare at the photograph as though she had seen a ghost awakened questions he had never considered before. Within hours, curiosity transformed into obsession. Damien activated resources few people even knew existed. Private investigators, legal researchers, genealogists, and historical archives began searching through decades of forgotten records. What began as a strange coincidence quickly evolved into something far more complicated. Victoria found herself drawn deeper into the mystery. The more information that surfaced, the less sense her past seemed to make. 3 days later, the first breakthrough arrived. An elderly record specialist located sealed adoption documents dating back more than 30 years. The paperwork had been buried beneath legal amendments and name changes that appeared intentionally designed to disappear. Damien and Victoria reviewed the files together inside the estate's private library. The room felt unusually close as old documents covered the massive oak table. Every page revealed another hidden layer. Every signature uncovered another secret. Then they found the truth. Sophia Blackwood and Evelyn Sterling had been sisters. Not cousins. Not distant relatives. Sisters. Blood sisters. The discovery stole Victoria's breath. According to the records, their parents had separated during a bitter family dispute decades earlier. Financial struggles, inheritance conflicts, and legal complications had shattered the family into separate lives. One daughter had remained with her biological mother. The other had been quietly adopted by relatives and raised under a different identity. Neither child had ever learned the truth. Neither woman had known the other existed. For a long moment, silence filled the library. Victoria stared at the documents while emotions collided inside her. Sadness. Confusion. A strange sense of loss. An entire family history had been hidden from 2 women who deserved to know each other. Damien felt something equally unsettling. Sophia had spent her life believing she was alone. She had never known she had a sister. She had never known she had a niece. Victoria was connected to Sophia. Connected to him. The realization created a feeling Damien could not easily explain. Something protective awakened inside him. Something possessive. What? The thought appeared unexpectedly before he forced it away. Victoria was not his responsibility. Yet every instinct urged him to protect her. As the investigation expanded, additional records emerged from different states. Birth certificates, property documents, and forgotten letters slowly painted a picture of a family deliberately erased by time. But they were not the only people interested in the truth. Unknown eyes had begun watching. Neither Damien nor Victoria realized it initially. A parked vehicle appearing too often near the estate. Anonymous access attempts targeting archived databases. Encrypted searches connected to Sophia's name. Small details that seemed insignificant alone but formed a troubling pattern together. Someone else wanted the answers. Someone with resources. Someone willing to remain hidden. The discovery transformed curiosity into danger. Damien increased security around both Victoria and the investigation. His natural need for control intensified. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Why had the records remained hidden for so long? Who benefited from keeping the sisters separated? And why was someone monitoring every step of their investigation now? The deeper they searched, the more dangerous the truth appeared to become. Victoria found herself emotionally attached to the mystery. What had begun as simple curiosity had become deeply personal. She wanted answers not only for herself but for Sophia as well. The woman in the portrait was no longer a stranger. She was family. As evening settled over Blackwood Manor, another shipment of archived records arrived from a storage facility in Connecticut. The boxes contained documents nobody had examined in decades. Potentially the final pieces of the puzzle. Neither Damien nor Victoria realized someone else had already learned about their arrival. Someone waiting in the shadows. Someone who intended to reach the truth first. The following morning, Damien entered the library expecting to continue the investigation. Instead, he found one entire box of family records missing. No alarms had sounded. No security breach had been detected. Yet the most important documents had vanished. And resting on the empty table was a single anonymous note. Someone had stolen part of the family history before they could uncover the full truth. The missing family records changed everything. What had started as a personal mystery now carried the unmistakable scent of danger. Someone had invested significant resources to hide the truth about Sophia and Evelyn, and that realization followed Victoria long after she left Blackwood Manor. 3 days later she returned to Sterling Nexus Technologies. The towering glass headquarters had once represented everything she had built through determination and sacrifice. Normally, walking through the lobby filled her with confidence. Today the atmosphere felt different. Employees lowered their voices when she passed. Executives exchanged nervous glances. Whispers traveled through corridors before disappearing the moment she approached. Victoria sensed trouble immediately. By the time she entered the executive conference room, her fears were confirmed. Large screens displayed flashing security alerts. Critical company systems were failing. Customer databases were being targeted. Financial networks were experiencing coordinated disruptions. The cyber attack was unlike anything her security team had encountered before. For the next several hours, departments worked frantically to contain the damage. News of the attack spread through financial markets with alarming speed. Investors who once praised Victoria's leadership suddenly questioned her ability to protect the company. The pressure intensified. Stock values fluctuated. Media outlets speculated endlessly. Board members demanded emergency meetings. Fear spread through Sterling Nexus faster than the attack itself. Victoria refused to panic. She had spent years building her reputation as one of America's most respected technology leaders. She would not allow a crisis to destroy everything she had created. But when investigators traced the origin of several suspicious transactions connected to the attack, a familiar name appeared. Ethan Drake. Victoria felt her stomach tighten. Months earlier, Ethan had been her closest business partner. She had trusted him completely until his betrayal nearly destroyed the company. Now evidence suggested he was involved once again. The discovery raised an even more troubling question. Why would Ethan risk returning after everything that had happened? The answer arrived through Damien. Late that evening, Damien reviewed intelligence reports gathered through his private network. Unlike public investigators, his sources operated in places most people never saw. Their findings revealed connections between Ethan Drake and a rival syndicate that had been quietly expanding its influence across several major cities. The situation was far bigger than corporate revenge. Victoria had become part of a larger game. A dangerous one. The rival organization believed she possessed information connected to the hidden family records. Whether true or not no longer mattered. Someone had decided she was important, which made her a target. Damien immediately increased security around her. Additional vehicles appeared outside company headquarters. Protective teams monitored public events. Travel schedules became tightly controlled. Victoria hated every second of it. She valued independence above everything else. Being surrounded by security felt like surrendering control of her own life. Their disagreements became frequent. Whenever Damien suggested precautions, Victoria pushed back. Whenever he warned her about risks, she challenged his assumptions. Yet beneath the arguments, something else was developing. Something neither wanted to acknowledge. The more time they spent together, the harder it became to ignore the growing connection. Victoria began seeing beyond Damien's intimidating reputation. Behind the power. Behind the influence. Behind the image of the feared Mafia King. There was a man carrying years of grief and responsibility. A man whose loyalty to the people he cared about remained unshakable. Likewise, Damien found himself increasingly fascinated by Victoria. Most people folded under pressure. Victoria adapted. Most people sought protection. Victoria fought for independence. Every challenge seemed to reveal another layer of strength. She was not fragile. She was not helpless. And despite the danger surrounding her, she refused to become defined by fear. The realization changed something inside Damien. At first, protecting Victoria had felt like responsibility. Now it felt personal. What? The thought surfaced again before he forced it away. Still, he could no longer deny the truth. Her safety mattered to him. Far more than it should. 1 week later, a prestigious charity event brought together influential business leaders from across New York. Victoria attended as one of the keynote sponsors while Damien observed discreetly from a distance. The evening appeared perfectly normal. Elegant music drifted through the venue. Executives networked. Investors discussed partnerships. Cameras flashed. For the first time in days, Victoria almost felt safe. Almost. Then Damien noticed something. A subtle movement near an elevated rooftop overlooking the event. Nothing obvious. Nothing anyone else would recognize. But years of experience made his instincts impossible to ignore. His pulse accelerated. Heart pounding. Every warning signal inside him activated at once. Across the crowded venue, Victoria remained completely unaware. She continued greeting guests while hidden eyes watched from above. And for the first time since the investigation began, Damien realized the threat against her was no longer limited to corporate sabotage. Someone was prepared to ensure Victoria Sterling never uncovered the truth. As Victoria stepped onto the stage to address hundreds of guests, Damien's attention locked onto a distant rooftop. A shadow moved behind reflective glass. In that terrifying moment, he understood exactly what was happening. Someone had positioned a sniper overlooking the charity event. And Victoria stood directly in the line of sight. The attempted attack at the charity event changed everything. Although Victoria never learned how close the danger had come, Damien refused to take chances. The investigation surrounding Sophia's hidden family history had already become too complicated, and now powerful enemies were watching Victoria's every move. Allowing her to remain exposed was no longer an option. Within 24 hours, Victoria was relocated permanently into Blackwood Manor. The estate no longer felt like a temporary refuge. It became her new reality. Security increased dramatically. Additional personnel appeared around the property. Vehicles monitored every entrance. Sophisticated surveillance systems quietly watched over the grounds. To outsiders, the estate resembled a fortress protecting something valuable. To Damien, it was protecting someone valuable. Victoria noticed the difference immediately. At first, she resisted the arrangement. She had spent her entire life building independence. Accepting protection felt dangerously close to surrendering control. Yet each day revealed new signs that the threats against her were becoming increasingly serious. Eventually, she stopped fighting the decision. For the first time in weeks, she felt genuinely safe. The feeling surprised her. Everything about Damien's world should have frightened her. His influence. His power. His reputation. The vast empire he commanded from behind legitimate corporations. Yet beneath the intimidating surface existed an unexpected sense of stability. A strange peace. A feeling she had not experienced since before Ethan's betrayal. Days slowly settled into routines. Breakfast often occurred in the estate's glass-covered garden overlooking the river. Afternoons were spent reviewing family records and corporate intelligence. Evenings usually ended in the library where unanswered questions about Sophia continued pulling them deeper into the mystery. The shared routines created something neither of them expected. Closeness. Not sudden. Not dramatic. Something quieter. More dangerous. The kind that arrived gradually until it became impossible to ignore. Victoria found herself looking forward to their conversations. Damien noticed it too. 4 years after Sophia's death, emotional distance had become his natural defense. Nobody entered his personal world. Nobody crossed the walls he had carefully built around his heart. Victoria somehow slipped through them. Without trying. Without manipulation. Without fear. One rainy evening, while reviewing another collection of archived documents, Damien finally spoke about Sophia in a way he never had before. Not as a tragedy. Not as a painful memory. But as a person. He described her intelligence. Her stubbornness. Her habit of collecting antique books she never had time to read. Victoria listened quietly. For the first time, she understood that Sophia's absence was not merely a chapter in Damien's life. It was the wound that shaped everything afterward. The confession changed something between them. Trust deepened. Loyalty began growing naturally. Not because either demanded it. Because both understood pain. Because both understood loss. Later that same week, Victoria discovered a locked wooden box hidden inside one of Sophia's old study cabinets. Inside were dozens of handwritten letters. Some unfinished. Some never mailed. Some addressed to nobody at all. They were personal reflections Sophia had written during different stages of her life. Victoria spent hours reading them. Each page revealed another piece of the woman she never had the chance to meet. One letter spoke about family. Another described recurring dreams about a sister she could never explain. A third mentioned feeling as though something important had been hidden from her entire life. The discovery sent chills through Victoria. Sophia had sensed the truth long before anyone uncovered it. Somewhere deep inside, she had always known something was missing. That realization created an emotional connection Victoria never expected. Sophia no longer felt like a photograph on a wall. She felt real. And somehow, through those letters, healing slowly began. For Victoria. For Damien. 4 wounds neither fully understood. Yet while emotional barriers weakened inside the estate, unseen threats continued growing outside. Unknown information kept reaching their enemies. Every new lead Damien uncovered somehow became compromised. Archived records disappeared. Witnesses changed their stories. Digital files were accessed before investigators arrived. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Someone inside Damien's organization was leaking information. Someone with access. Someone trusted. The realization disturbed him more than any external threat. His organization had survived because of loyalty. Without it, the empire itself became vulnerable. Days later, a private intelligence report arrived from one of Damien's most reliable sources. The findings were deeply troubling. Victoria watched silently as Damien reviewed the information. The expression on his face changed immediately. Not fear. Not anger. Something worse. Disbelief. Because the evidence pointed toward one person he trusted more than almost anyone. A man who had stood beside him for years. A man who helped build the empire. A man Damien considered family. The confidential report identified encrypted communications connected to the missing family records. Every trail led back to Damien's most trusted underboss. And for the first time, Damien was forced to consider an impossible possibility. The betrayal may have been coming from inside his inner circle all along. The report sat untouched on Damien's desk for nearly an hour. Not because he doubted its accuracy. Because he feared it was accurate. For years, Lucas Turner had been more than an underboss. He had been Damien's closest advisor, his most trusted strategist, and one of the few people who remained beside him after Sophia's death. Lucas knew the Empire's secrets. He knew its strengths. More importantly, he knew its weaknesses. The possibility of betrayal felt impossible. Yet the evidence continued growing. Encrypted communications. Hidden financial transfers. Unauthorized access to protected archives. Every investigation led back to Lucas. Victoria reviewed the documents repeatedly, hoping to find another explanation. Instead, she uncovered something even worse. The leaks had not started recently. They had been occurring for years. Someone had been quietly feeding information to Damien's rivals long before Victoria entered his life. The realization sent a chill through the room. This was not opportunistic treachery. This was a carefully planned operation. And it reached deep into the foundation of the empire. Damien immediately ordered a discreet internal investigation. No public accusations. No dramatic confrontations. Only facts. Only proof. The findings arrived faster than expected. Entire business divisions had been manipulated. Strategic partnerships had been quietly sabotaged. Rival organizations somehow knew details of confidential negotiations before they occurred. Even political alliances had been weakened through carefully planted misinformation. Lucas had been orchestrating chaos from within. The revelation shattered decades of loyalty. Across the organization, Uncertainty spread like wildfire. Executives questioned one another. Senior advisors became suspicious. Departments stopped sharing information. The empire Damien spent years building began showing dangerous fractures. For the first time in years, fear entered boardrooms that once operated with complete confidence. Every leader understood the same truth. If Lucas could betray Damien, anyone could. Meanwhile, Victoria continued examining the missing family records. Something about Sophia's history refused to leave her alone. The deeper she searched, the more inconsistencies appeared. Official reports did not match archived correspondence. Dates conflicted. Witness accounts shifted unexpectedly. Entire sections of information seemed intentionally altered. Someone had rewritten parts of history. One evening, while reviewing old insurance records connected to Sophia's death, Victoria discovered a series of unusual transactions that occurred immediately afterward. The payments led to shell corporations. The shell corporations connected to organizations controlled by Lucas. Her pulse quickened. Heart pounding. The discovery suggested something far more disturbing than betrayal inside the empire. It suggested Lucas might have been connected to events surrounding Sophia herself. Victoria immediately prepared the evidence. But before she could present everything to Damien, another crisis exploded. She vanished. One moment she was leaving a private corporate meeting. The next, all communication stopped. Her vehicle reached its destination. Victoria never did. The disappearance triggered panic throughout Damien's organization. Search teams activated immediately. Intelligence networks expanded across multiple cities. Every available resource focused on one objective: find Victoria. For the first time since Sophia's death, Damien felt genuine helplessness. Control slipped through his fingers. Hours passed without answers. Then an entire day. Then another. Each passing moment intensified his fear. Not because Victoria possessed valuable information. Not because she was connected to the investigation. Because she mattered. Far more than he wanted to admit. What? The thought returned stronger than ever. This time he did not reject it. The realization unsettled him. Victoria had become part of his life. Part of his future. And now she was gone. News of her disappearance spread quickly through the criminal world. Rival organizations watched closely. Business leaders whispered about instability inside Blackwood's empire. Old enemies began positioning themselves for opportunities. The entire underworld sensed weakness. And weakness attracted predators. The situation evolved into something larger than a missing person investigation. An internal war had begun. Not with weapons. With information. Influence. Secrets. Trust. Every hour revealed another hidden betrayal connected to Lucas. Every hour exposed another compromised relationship. The empire was fighting itself. And nobody knew how much damage remained hidden. Meanwhile, Victoria found herself confined inside a remote luxury property overlooking a secluded coastline. She was treated respectfully. Provided every comfort. Yet one truth remained unavoidable. Someone wanted her isolated. Someone wanted her silent. Rather than panic, Victoria focused on gathering information. She listened carefully. Observed details, studied conversations, and eventually she discovered documents her captors never intended her to see. The files contained records linked to Sophia Blackwood. Victoria's hands trembled as she reviewed them. At first, the information made no sense. Then the pieces aligned. The official story claimed Sophia's death resulted from a tragic accident. But the evidence told a different story. Financial transfers, private communications, altered reports, hidden approvals. The pattern became impossible to deny. Fear settled deep inside Victoria's chest. Not because she was trapped. Because she finally understood the truth. Sophia's death had never been accidental. Someone had planned it. Someone had benefited from it. And every document pointed toward a conspiracy reaching far beyond Lucas Turner. As Victoria opened the final file, a handwritten note slipped from between the pages. The message contained only one sentence. Sophia Blackwood discovered the truth before she died. In that horrifying moment, Victoria realized Sophia had not died in an accident. She had been murdered. And the people responsible were still hiding inside the shadows of the empire. The handwritten note refused to leave Victoria's mind. For hours, she sat alone reviewing every document hidden inside the confidential files. The deeper she searched, the more horrifying the truth became. Sophia Blackwood had not stumbled upon danger by accident. She had discovered something powerful enough to threaten influential people across multiple industries and criminal organizations. Years before her death, Sophia had quietly begun investigating irregular financial transactions connected to Blackwood Holdings. What started as simple curiosity gradually uncovered an enormous network of hidden partnerships, shell corporations, and secret agreements linking powerful business leaders to rival syndicates. Sophia had been intelligent enough to follow the trail. Unfortunately, she had followed it too far. The records revealed that shortly before her death, Sophia uncovered evidence connecting Lucas Turner to unauthorized financial operations worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Those operations generated influence, leverage, and power far beyond what Damien ever suspected. Sophia intended to expose everything. Lucas learned about her investigation. And according to the evidence Victoria now held in her hands, he made a decision that changed countless lives forever. Sophia had become a threat. A threat Lucas could not allow to survive. Victoria felt her breath catch as the final pieces aligned. Years of lies. Years of deception. Years of carefully manufactured stories. All designed to hide a single truth. Sophia had been eliminated because she discovered secrets that endangered powerful people. But another revelation waited beneath that one. A revelation connected directly to Victoria's family. Among the hidden records was a sealed collection of letters written decades earlier by Sophia and Evelyn's biological mother. The correspondence exposed the family history that had remained buried for more than 30 years. Victoria's mother had always been the missing piece. The separation of the sisters had not been accidental. Certain individuals connected to a valuable inheritance had manipulated legal proceedings decades earlier. The family had been divided deliberately to ensure control of assets and influence. By separating the children, powerful figures gained access to resources that never belonged to them. Sophia spent years unknowingly searching for answers. Evelyn spent years unaware she even had a sister. The family tragedy had begun long before Sophia's death. Victoria finally understood why someone had worked so hard to keep the records hidden. If the truth emerged, decades of corruption would collapse. Meanwhile, Damien received a secure package delivered anonymously to Blackwood Manor. Inside were copies of the same documents Victoria had discovered. For several minutes he sat silently inside his private office, reading every page. The world around him seemed to disappear. The grief he had carried for 5 years suddenly transformed into something else. Determination. Cold. Focused. Unbreakable. The truth hurt more than any lie ever could. Sophia had trusted the wrong person. Lucas had betrayed not only the empire but the woman Damien loved most. For years Damien blamed fate. Now he finally knew where responsibility belonged. His hands tightened around the documents. Heart pounding. Not from rage. From clarity. For the first time since Sophia's death, he understood exactly what he needed to do. Hours later, Victoria was safely recovered through intelligence gathered by Damien's network. When they finally met again inside Blackwood Manor, something fundamental had changed between them. Neither pretended anymore. The walls that once separated them had disappeared. Secrets had forced them together. Truth had bound them even closer. Victoria shared every document she discovered. Damien shared every piece of intelligence gathered from his own investigation. No hesitation. No hidden agendas. Only trust. The connection between them deepened naturally. Victoria became more than someone Damien needed to protect. She became his strongest ally. The one person capable of understanding both the personal loss and the larger conspiracy threatening everything around them. Likewise, Victoria saw a different side of Damien. Not merely the feared king of a criminal empire. Not merely a powerful man accustomed to control. But someone capable of extraordinary loyalty. Someone willing to risk everything for the people he loved. As the days passed, plans began forming. Evidence was organized. Allies were identified. Corrupt networks were mapped. The truth was finally within reach. For the first time, victory seemed possible. Yet neither Damien nor Victoria realized how desperate their enemies had become. Because while they were uncovering secrets, rival forces had been preparing something far more dangerous. Something larger than hidden files. Larger than betrayal. Larger than Lucas Turner. The conspiracy had evolved into a direct challenge against the Blackwood Empire itself. And powerful people were no longer interested in remaining hidden. Just before midnight, emergency reports began arriving from every corner of Damien's organization. Major business partners were withdrawing support. Critical operations were being disrupted. Longtime allies were suddenly disappearing. A coordinated assault had begun. Not against Damien personally. Against the entire Blackwood Empire. And as warning messages flooded the secure communication network, one terrifying truth became clear. The rival syndicate had finally launched a full-scale war for control of everything Damien owned. The assault against the Blackwood Empire did not arrive with a single attack. It arrived as chaos. Within hours of the first warning reports, businesses connected to Damien's network began experiencing coordinated disruptions. Major contracts were suddenly cancelled. Financial institutions delayed approvals. Strategic partners who had stood beside Blackwood Holdings for years quietly withdrew their support. Someone had spent years preparing this moment. And now they were moving all at once. Across New York, uncertainty spread rapidly. The rival syndicate understood a simple truth. Destroying Damien physically would create a martyr. Destroying his empire would erase his influence forever. Their objective was not revenge. It was replacement. They wanted everything. Damien immediately activated emergency response teams across his organization. Senior executives gathered inside Blackwood Manor while intelligence analysts monitored developments around the clock. For the first time in years, the empire faced a threat capable of reshaping its future. Fear settled over every meeting, every phone call, every decision. Yet Damien remained remarkably calm. Years of leadership had taught him that panic destroyed organizations faster than enemies ever could. The king refused to panic. But even he understood the severity of the situation. Political allies who once benefited from Blackwood influence suddenly distanced themselves. Public officials stopped returning calls. Regulatory investigations appeared from nowhere. Media outlets launched aggressive campaigns questioning the legitimacy of Blackwood corporations. The pressure came from every direction. The rival syndicate was attacking reputation, influence, and financial stability simultaneously. For a brief moment, even Damien wondered whether the empire could survive. Then Victoria stepped forward. Unlike everyone else in the room, she viewed the situation differently. Most leaders saw crisis. Victoria saw patterns. As CEO of a billion-dollar technology company, she had spent years identifying weaknesses before they became disasters. While others focused on individual problems, she studied connections. And the connections revealed something important. The attacks were coordinated through financial channels, meaning they could be disrupted. For the next several days, Victoria barely slept. She analyzed transaction networks, partnership structures, and corporate alliances connected to the rival syndicate. Hidden relationships emerged. Secret investments surfaced. Vulnerabilities appeared where nobody expected them. One by one, she developed solutions. Critical assets were transferred before they could be targeted. Financial reserves were protected. Business operations were reorganized. Revenue streams were redirected. Potential losses became manageable risks. The results shocked everyone. Entire divisions that seemed destined to collapse suddenly stabilized. Projects considered lost were saved. Key operations continued functioning. For the first time since the crisis began, momentum shifted. Executives who initially viewed Victoria as an outsider began seeing something else. Leadership, vision, power. Not inherited power. Earned power. The kind built through intelligence, discipline, and courage. Word spread quickly throughout the organization. Employees spoke about her strategies. Executives praised her decisions. Even longtime Blackwood advisors admitted she had prevented catastrophic losses. Respect followed naturally. Damien watched the transformation with growing admiration. When they first met, he saw a successful CEO struggling through betrayal and uncertainty. Now he saw something entirely different. Someone capable of standing beside the most powerful people in the room and commanding attention without demanding it. Someone capable of protecting others while carrying enormous pressure herself. Someone who refused to break. The realization changed how he viewed her. Victoria was never someone who needed saving. She was someone capable of helping save an empire. And for the first time, Damien began understanding what Sophia once meant when she described extraordinary strength. It rarely looked dramatic. It looked like Victoria. Focused, determined, unshaken. The conflict continued escalating. More business attacks followed. More alliances shifted. More hidden enemies revealed themselves. Yet each challenge seemed to strengthen Victoria rather than weaken her. The rival syndicate expected fear. Instead, they encountered resilience. They expected retreat. Instead, they faced strategy. They expected a vulnerable target. Instead, they discovered a woman who adapted faster than they could predict. She was not a victim. The truth became impossible to ignore. She was not hiding behind Damien's influence. She was helping lead the response. Every victory increased confidence throughout the organization. Every solution strengthened morale. And with each passing day, Victoria's role expanded naturally. Employees who once addressed her formally now sought her guidance. Senior leaders consulted her before making decisions. Even veteran advisors began referring to her as the future of the organization. Quietly, respectfully, almost as though they already saw what she could become. A queen standing beside a king. Meanwhile, intelligence teams continued searching for evidence capable of exposing the rival syndicate permanently. The breakthrough arrived unexpectedly. A hidden archive connected to Sophia's original investigation was finally located. The discovery promised answers. Not only about Lucas, not only about the conspiracy, but about Sophia herself. Late one evening, after another exhausting day of crisis management, Damien received an encrypted file recovered from the archive. The file contained a single recording, created only days before Sophia's death. His hands froze. For years he believed no final message existed. For years he believed her last thoughts were lost forever. Now something impossible had appeared. Something buried for 5 years. Something Sophia had hidden intentionally. Heart-pounding, Damien stared at the screen. The entire room fell silent. Because everyone understood the significance. Sophia Blackwood had left behind one final message. And whatever it contained had remained hidden until now. As the recording prepared to open, Damien noticed a date attached to the file. It was created less than 24 hours before Sophia died. For the first time in 5 years he was about to hear her voice again. And deep inside he already knew the message would change everything. If this story reminded you that the strongest people are often the ones carrying the deepest scars, then you're exactly why these stories are told. Every king needs loyalty, every queen needs courage, and every great story deserves to be shared with someone who would understand it. If you enjoyed this journey with Damien and Victoria, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves powerful mafia romance stories as much as you do. And before you go, I want to ask you something. If you were Victoria, would you have trusted Damien after discovering he was a mafia boss? Or would you have walked away no matter how much your heart wanted to stay? Tell me your answer in the comments. Because sometimes the hardest choice isn't between right and wrong. It's between safety and love. The room remained silent as Sophia's final recording began to play. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even the air seemed frozen. Then Sophia's voice filled the room. Soft, calm, familiar. 5 years had passed since Damien last heard it, yet he recognized it instantly. Victoria watched his expression carefully. The powerful king who controlled one of New York's most influential empires suddenly looked like a man carrying the weight of an unfinished goodbye. Sophia's message was not filled with fear. It was filled with clarity. She explained that she had discovered dangerous information involving hidden financial networks, corrupt alliances, and individuals operating within Damien's organization. She admitted she feared the truth might eventually place her in danger, which was why she created the recording. But the final part of her message affected Damien most. Sophia spoke about the future. She spoke about moving forward. She spoke about love. And she asked him for one thing. If life ever gave him another chance at happiness, he should take it. Without guilt. Without regret. Without remaining trapped inside the past. The message provided something Damien never thought possible. Closure. 4 years' grief had controlled every decision he made. Every relationship. Every dream. Every hope. Now for the first time he felt that burden begin to lift. The past would always matter. Sophia would always matter. But he finally understood she never wanted him imprisoned by her memory. She wanted him to live. The realization changed everything. Over the following weeks, the evidence gathered by Victoria, Damien, and their allies finally exposed the entire conspiracy. Lucas Turner's network collapsed under the weight of the truth. Years of hidden transactions, secret communications, and manipulated records surfaced through coordinated investigations. The man Damien once trusted more than anyone else lost the influence he spent years building. His betrayal became public. His power disappeared. And his role in Sophia's tragedy could no longer remain hidden. At the same time, authorities investigating financial crimes uncovered overwhelming evidence against Ethan Drake. The former business partner who betrayed Victoria found himself unable to escape the consequences of his actions. Every scheme, every deception, and every secret partnership was exposed. One by one, the people responsible for years of manipulation lost their ability to hide. The rival syndicates suffered the same fate. Financial networks collapsed. Corporate allies disappeared. Influential supporters abandoned them. The organization that once threatened the Blackwood Empire slowly fell apart from within. The war was finally over. Not through destruction, but through truth. And truth proved stronger than any conspiracy. As stability returned, Victoria focused on rebuilding Sterling Nexus Technologies. Investors regained confidence. New partnerships emerged. Growth returned stronger than before. What once appeared to be the end of her career became the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Her company recovered. Her future recovered. And so did she. The woman who arrived at Damien's mansion broken by betrayal no longer existed. She had changed. She had grown. She had become stronger through every challenge. Across New York, people began recognizing her for more than business success. They saw her intelligence, her resilience, her leadership. Most importantly, they saw her influence inside the Blackwood organization. Employees respected her. Executives trusted her. Allies admired her. Without demanding authority, she naturally earned it. The transition felt effortless because it was built upon loyalty rather than fear. One evening, months after the conflict ended, Victoria stood beside Damien on the balcony overlooking the city skyline. The same city that once seemed filled with danger now looked different. Safer. Brighter. Full of possibilities. The distance between them had disappeared completely. No secrets remained. No walls remained. Only trust. Only understanding. Only a future they had built together. Damien looked at Victoria and realized something important. For years he searched for ways to protect the people he cared about. Now he finally had someone willing to stand beside him and protect the future with him. Not behind him. Beside him. A true partner. A queen. Victoria accepted that role naturally. Not because of titles. Not because of power. But because she had earned her place through courage, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. The Blackwood Empire entered a new era. An era built on trust rather than fear. An era where old wounds slowly healed. An era where family finally mattered more than secrets. For the first time in years, both Damien and Victoria felt genuinely safe. And for the first time, the future felt larger than the past. As the city lights glittered beneath them, Damien quietly understood a truth he had resisted for months. Victoria was no longer simply someone he needed to protect. She was mine. And he was hers. Together they had transformed tragedy into something stronger. Something lasting. Something worth fighting for. 3 days later, a sealed envelope arrived at Blackwood Manor with no return address. Inside was a faded photograph taken more than 30 years earlier. The picture showed Sophia's biological parents, Evelyn as a child, and another young girl nobody recognized. Attached to the photograph was a handwritten note. "There is one more daughter." Victoria's breath caught. Damien stared at the image in disbelief. Because the mystery they believed had finally ended was only beginning again. Somewhere out there, another hidden relative connected to Sophia's family was waiting to be found. And the next chapter of the story had already begun.